Okay, the spike tooth harrow, it has these little things on it, and that's what I use to make the final pass. And it's just chained behind the chisel plow on the last pass through the field. So I use this implement not only for making the final pass before I plant, I also use it after I plant. So 2 or 3 days after I plant a deep-seeded crop, and this would be potato, corn, squash, bean, melon, anything that's like planted this depth. After 2 or 3 days, that seed will have swelled up a little bit, but it hasn't sent up any shoots. And by dragging this over the field, I can get about 1 inch down, and that kills all the sprouting weeds in the top inch of soil, so that then my squash or corn comes up clean without a bunch of grass around it. And another trick is to get the field ready to plant, and then don't plant it. Let it rain on it. The weeds start sprouting, and then you run that tool over it again. And that's called creating a stale seed bed. And if you do that enough, like do that a few times, what happens is you've killed a lot of the weed seeds in the surface of the soil, so that when you do plant, you've gotten rid of a lot of the foxtail and stuff mechanically, rather than having it. The worst thing to do is to go into soil right after you've got it ready and plant it right away, because your weeds are just going to come up and be hellacious. And if you get a lot of rain, you'll end up with this the scenario that I call a lawn with your plants growing up, trying to come up in it. Have you ever tried that? That takes a lot of work. And so what I'm trying to do is show you how to get out of work. So I grew up on a farm. People say, oh, you must have learned how to do farm work from your dad. And I said, hell no, I learned how to get out of farm work. That's what teenagers do, and I've been trying to get out of farm work my whole life. I haven't succeeded very well, but I'm trying to do less work and do more thinking. Yeah, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit and mention that a chisel plow would be like a garden fork. So in a garden, you might just use a digging fork. So when you use the shovel or the moldboard plow, there's an inevitable smearing effect. You put the shovel in the ground. Has everybody put a shovel in the ground? Taking out some soil. What's left is smeared. It's kind of sealed over. If you take a fork and put it in the ground and dig it, the smearing only happens right there. So it doesn't. So it's not as doesn't make for as many clods and stuff. So the fork is a better implement. And then the harrow would be replaced in the garden by a rake. It would be like just taking a rake over the field. So in a small garden, you might plant some beans. 2 to 3 days later, just drag the rake right over your row. You're not going to hurt your beans that haven't sprouted yet, but you're going to kill all those weed seeds. And it's such a pleasure to see your crop come up with no grass coming up with it. And then you can get in there and tickle it around and keep the weeds from ever sprouting. Yeah. So the harrow's really good. And then play video on screen. So here's the chisel plow, and then the harrow dragged behind it. Yeah. And I may not be going as deep as I could because I don't want to, the soil may still be moist down there. Yeah, so that's so this is primary tillage. I'm getting the soil ready to plant. The tillage implements that we don't use and that's not even a picture of a disc, I'm sorry. That's actually a disc plow. You all know what a disc is? It has things that look like this, but they're smaller and they're in rows, usually 2 rows of them. You know what I'm talking about, a disc? Yeah. So where I grew up in Indiana, my dad used a disc all the time. in Illinois and Indiana is where I grew up. And so we had these really nice black soils that were sand-based. If you dug this deep through this black soil, you didn't hit clay, you hit sand. And so the disc in sandy soils wasn't negative. So I came down here and I looked like this guy over here. And I disked and I disked and I disked back and forth. And I couldn't have made better bricks if I was trying to. So I came out these little clods like this, and the whole field just looked like clods, because it was clay and not sand. And the disc makes for clods in a clay soil. And then the other tool that we never use is a rototiller, and this is like taking an egg beater to your soil, and it's just it really masks the idea of what good tilth is, because after you rototill, it looks like you have good tilth. The soil's nice and fluffy, and it's just beautiful. But then when it rains, it goes like this, and gets dry, and it turns into concrete. And so we don't use the tillers. And the disc I might use to chop up some corn stalks or something like that, but I hardly ever use it, very rarely. And if you do have to use a tiller, go lightly over it real fast. Don't lay that thing in there and just egg beat your soil to death. Yeah, just use it real quickly and then get out. Yeah. And again, having these resting periods between tillage really helps. You don't feel like you need to take a cover crop and get your corn planted in it the same day. That doesn't work very well. Give yourself some time. We live in the South. We have a lot of time. It's not like we have to have that little window of opportunity that they have up in Minnesota. If you don't get your tomatoes out this week, you're not going to get tomatoes. Yeah, so we have a lot of time here. And so let that soil thoroughly dry up. And, we were a month behind our spring planting just like a week ago. And within a week we caught up, and it's just once it dries up, and then you can get out there and do what you need to do. Yeah.
Question?
Yeah.
Even if you till just a little bit, it does still compact underneath it, right?
It will, but you mean rototill?
The rototill.
Yeah, I'd rather not use rototiller at all. But if I do use it, I want to go over the field pretty quickly.
Right. We did a bed last night, and I broad forked it after doing a really light till on the surface.
Yeah.
To undo kind of what it did.
Yeah. So one of the pictures in my mind is a rototilled soil would have all the particles of soil the same size. Whereas in the way I want to do it, I want to have bigger particles than smaller clumps, and the fine seed bed only needs to be the very tip. Like you said, just about that deep. Yeah. Yeah, and so we use a spading machine sometimes instead of you can't really see. But yeah, a spading machine is a kind of a tiller, but it has shoes on it, about like that, like little shovels, and it's triple jointed. Has anybody ever seen one of these, a spading machine? They're cool. They're really cool. They're from Italy. And the shoe goes down into the soil about 10 inches or so, and then the tractor goes forward, the shoe goes back a little bit, and then it comes up and flips, and then goes like this at the very end. So it's almost like a double digging machine. It opens the subsoil, but leaves the subsoil down there, and then just flips up the topsoil. Yeah, it's called a Italian spading machine. Yeah. So I think that maybe it's 3 o'clock. Should we take a little break for a few minutes? And that sound good? Okay. Well, thank you all. And please feel free to ask me some more questions during break if you want.
Doing great.
Okay.
You have a real life example right here.
I have a what?
A real life example.
Yeah. This is the wrong way to do it.
What's he doing right now?
He's disking, but he's going over and over it too much. See how dusty it is?
Yeah.
And well, they were describing what he does there, and it sounds terrible. It's a lot of chemicals and GMOs and
We were gonna go have an intervention with him later. I'll walk over and be like, we would like to invite you.